Hey guys, Ian here. For this video, I was able to have my insurance provider, Bruce Woods, come on, and we talked a little bit about getting commercial insurance as a startup. He's a really good contact if you're involved with fishing charters, boat charters, water sport construction. That's his primary focus, is really just commercial operations and getting your business covered. So even if you don't have time to watch the whole video, I'd recommend maybe reaching out to him. He's really good. He'll talk about your business plan with you, what you're looking to do, and help point you in the right direction. There's not really a whole lot of contacts in this industry for commercial insurance, so finding someone like Bruce is pretty key to getting set up in the beginning.
Well, you did it right from the start, and that's I think probably if this your intended audience is probably guys that are thinking about doing what you're doing, or at least in some fashion, degree, or whatever their business plan might be. And from the start, when somebody calls me like you did and said, "Hey, this is what I'm intending to do," the first conversation really is preparation. And you had a really good video earlier about just kind of a step-by-step of how you went about your plan and kind of getting your ducks in a row before you approached underwriters to see if it was actually an insurable endeavor.
Yeah.
And that's really the biggest challenge for guys just starting out. As you know, it's a lot like credit. You go to a bank, you don't have any credit history. You're really selling yourself. And a lot of times guys just don't want to give you a chance because there's no history to look back on.
Yeah.
But it'll be my job to work with any prospective business owner, as I did with you, to sell you and your plan to underwriters. And as you know, there's limited markets that are interested in insuring this kind of thing, regardless of your experience or past history. There's not a ton of you guys out there. The premium base is going to be limited. And sometimes there's a guy at bean counter up there somewhere that doesn't know anything about wake construction or anything, water sports in general. They just see a potential premium amount of money every year and what a potential loss might be. And if that can't balance out, they'll move on and want to insure something else. So with that dynamic at play, there's not many markets to approach for this kind of thing. There's one really good program. It's the program that I write. It's the program that we put you on because it's intentionally designed for guys that do what you do, guys that love water sports and have figured out a way to make a few dollars at it, have a viable business at the same time. So that's usually the first task is to take folks, take their plan, take to the underwriters and make sure that we can get it insured.
Exactly. And what's kind of your range? I know with me, we do the water sports, we have like some pontoon stuff, but how far beyond that do you go? Do you do like jet skis and fishing charters, or like what's kind of your scope?
Anything commercial marine, with a focus on the water sports end, the harder to place risks. But commercial marine could be anywhere from a boat dealership to a marina to, like you mentioned, a six-pack charter or an inspected vessel charter, meaning multi-passenger, more than six passenger. Of course, parasailing is my specialty because I have a background in parasail operations and jet ski operations. And as challenging as your type of business is to insure, those are even more challenging. So my job is to keep an ear on the ground, make sure that the markets that are out there I have access to, and make sure that we can get programs that not only get the coverage that you need, but get it in an affordable range so that you're not, working just to pay your insurance bill.
Yeah, exactly. And so let's say someone's coming to you, they want to start with water sports or, doing some charters. Like, what do you kind of mainly want to see from them? And like, what does it look like from them calling you to kind of getting them, set up and good to go?
First thing I do usually is ask what their level of experience is. And, oftentimes guys will come to me and they have an existing business and they're just looking to improve their insurance position. Sometimes they've had a claim and their insurance company doesn't want to handle it or maybe they bought an existing company. Maybe they worked for a company and the owner wants to step away and make it available to his employee now who's going to run the business and eventually assume ownership. So the first thing I do is I talk to them about what their experience is, what their past history is. If they've got a past history, I want to know right off the bat how long they've been in the business, who's been involved, what activities they do, and if there's been any losses, because those are the things that the underwriters are going to want. I can kind of qualify on the phone pretty much with that initial discussion as to, number one, is it something that we're going to have trouble insuring? And number two, if we're not going to have trouble insuring, who's the best market? And then number three, I can give them an expectation as to what kind of coverage is available, what it'll cost, and what the time frame is to get everything rolling. What kind of information we'll need, what the process is in application, underwriting, quoting, and then eventually binding coverage.
Yeah. I think that's another good thing. I know when I called you, it was like October, and I was planning on starting the next year. Like 19 years old, money's tight. And you were able to kind of at least give me a little bit of an expectation for my market of, what we were looking at, maybe it's a few thousand to get started or whatever, just some kind of a number where you're like, okay, I can at least now move forward and sort of going to know what's going to go into it, which was nice.
Yeah, that's really the first question. I mean, when you're putting your business plan together, you know what you want to do, you know what you're good at, you know what excites you.
Yeah.
What's going to cost me to do this, and can I make money? And insurance is a big part of it.
Yeah. And I think this type of business too, when you're talking to like family and friends and people in general, that's the point they usually kind of shoot down. They're like, oh, that's such like a high risk business and whatever, who's going to insure you? And it's like, you do have to work at it to find someone like yourself, but it's not, crazy to get set up. Some people make it out to be a little harder than it probably is and stop there. So,
starting any business is daunting, and nobody will deny that. You get an idea in your head, and it's not long before all of a sudden, people are throwing stuff at you. You got to think about this. You got to think about that. You got to take this step. You got to talk to this guy. You got to put this paperwork in through here.
Yep.
And it's discouraging. It really is discouraging. And it takes a lot of resolve to kind of get over those steps, but it's doable. And, I think you're a perfect example because you started without all of those things in place that typically people want to see, history, experience, all that kind of stuff. You did have good experience for what you do in wakeboard instruction and boating experience and things like that. And that helped along, but it was your first business venture, right?
Yeah, exactly.
I can tell you what kind of documents insurers will want to see, and I can give you some samples. I'll say, here's a good liability release waiver that we know the insurer has approved in the past.
Yeah.
You can use this if you want, but have a lawyer look at it. Make sure it applies to your local statutes. The language is applicable to wherever you operate. States have different case precedents and different language that they like to see. So ultimately, lawyers are best for that, but I can certainly start the ball rolling.
Yeah, it's a starting point, exactly, just to get something in your hand when you're first going. Yeah, for sure. And then, so if people are interested in getting in contact with you, what's the best way to do that? Or what do you have going on there?
Phone is always the best. Insurance has gotten to be where everybody likes to do stuff: email, fax, broadcast, emails, get online, put your application in and stuff. And there's a place for that. And I like to document things with emails and, texts and things like that, because that just kind of eliminates the opportunity for some confusion or misunderstanding. So it's always good practice to have things in writing. But for the initial conversation, call me on the phone. Let's talk about what you want to do. And within, 30 or 40 minutes, you telling me what you're interested in, I can tell you what's available. We can have a pretty good plan laid out. And then we can proceed with the email. I can get over to you forms, and continue the conversation there. But phone's always the best place to start.
Sounds good. I think that's good. I think that gives like a nice nice basic overview for, someone who's looking to get into it, just what they could expect in the insurance space for sure. So it's good.
Yeah, I think when I get a call from guys, it's most often somebody, young guy or girl who loves what they do. And, they might race jet skis. They might be competitive wakeboard competitors. They might, they may be a crew on a parasail boat and want to start their own thing, whatever the case might be. It's usually, they usually want to know how much experience, how much qualifications, what do I need to know? So that's usually the biggest conversation with wake, water ski, and tubing and recreational charters and things like the program that you're on. It's not required that you have a Coast Guard license, as you know. I think you mentioned that in one of your videos. It depends on the waters that you're going to operate on. There's navigable water, there's non-navigable water. And navigable water is regulated by the Coast Guard, requiring that if you have commercial passengers on board, regardless of what you're doing, you have to have a licensed master. That's not a requirement of the insurance program. The insurance program just says that you have to be in compliance with your state and local law, which will alleviate maybe the need for getting your OUPV license or whatever. However, if you get that, all the better, because it's pretty rigorous process, right? You got to know a lot of stuff. You got to understand emergency procedures, emergency equipment, safe handling, safety briefings, all that kind of stuff. And underwriters love to see that, even if you don't have to have it. If you get your OUPV at a minimum, or your 25 ton or whatever it might be, underwriters love to see that. I would encourage your guys to go through that course, because let's say they've got a seasonal operation, but they can put that captain's license to work in their off season. They can go down to Florida and run a 6-pack boat, run a parasail boat. Those guys make a ton of money, So that might be something to mention as well. I always like to see that, and I always encourage people to do that. Boater safety certificate at a minimum, and certainly CPR and first aid, stay current, those things.
Yeah, I think getting that captain's license is a great thing to do before you even deal with any of this stuff, just because there's a lot of paperwork involved, but once you have it, you have it.
Right.
Just to take a few months and just get it done, I think it's good to have for sure.
You'll love it, man. I don't know if you can see back behind me there. I've got my 2 Coast Guard certificates back there. Those are old school. I don't think they do those anymore, but those go back to the 90s. And I, once I had those licenses, I just kept updating my sea time, and I kept getting upgrades. And I worked on the water in a lot of different capacities, in a lot of different ways, in a lot of different countries, a lot of different waters. And man, never regret having that ticket. Yeah, man. Well, I'll be happy to help them through it.
Yeah, I think that was perfect. Thanks for talking. That was a good little overview, and kind of shows people it doesn't have to be super intimidating, hopefully. So